Hello and welcome to the Esports Meta. I'm Billy Sims. We're about to get started. So all you gamers, grinders, and glory chasers, welcome to North America's Esports Rundown for this week. Alongside me today, my co-host, Nicholas Layton. Let's get him on in here. How you doing today, Nick? Are you excited to talk about some esports? So the news is
I'm pretty excited. It's been a good week. I just got back from doing a nice little tournament over the weekend for Magic and League of Legends and Overwatch. I did terribly, but it's not the point. I had a good time. It was over in Philly, so I got to go to Philly, and that was
awesome.
Pretty much it.
What format did you play?
I played Legacy. It was pretty cool. I was gonna play in other formats. I just I have kids. So I couldn't get like 2 days to go play in different formats, but I was going to play in Modern. But no, I played in Legacy for a 5K.
I mean, Magic's also one of those tournaments, one of those games where you need the budget to play.
Yeah, I mean, I borrow cards, shamelessly to play in Legacy.
Hey, you might
I have cards. Yeah, but no, I have a good friend that I share a card pool with, basically.
Oh, that's cool.
So I luck out with that, and he has all of the good, expensive cards.
You should probably share your kids with them too, so you get more time.
He's got his own, so unfortunate, can't have him babysit.
Well, Nick, I gotta admit, you got me a little flustered off the top. My intro is definitely a little slighted, a little jaded. I'm just trying to think, but I can't get past. We're sitting here arguing about Sylvanas versus Garrosh and WoW and what actually happened. And we're not going to go into it, but you definitely ruffled my feathers with it, man, saying that stuff.
That's what I do,
A little bit unfair, but that's not the topic of today's show. We've got some great information, great topics, and great news to talk to you about. Our main subject matter is going to be about some exciting comps that happen in the OWCS Japan region, some low ranks, some low tier characters being played at high tier levels and quite surprisingly doing well. But other than that, let's start off with the news. Let's get this whole show on the road and rolling. I got to pull up the first story here because I'm a little bit behind, but there we go. All right. We're going to actually head into the MDI, the WoW Mythic Dungeon Invitational. The globals were happening this weekend, so there's a lot of excitement, a lot of close matches, and we're going to run through the scores, the storylines, and a bit of the cool tech that happened this weekend. Starting off, here we go. Just a big congratulations to Mandatory for taking first place. Spoiler alert, if you're going to rewatch it, Mandatory won. Echo came in second. And it was quite the back and forth between these two power hitters amongst all these other teams. Really competitive. This was our final standings and our final prize pool. Mandatory winning $80,000 for this invitational, this global invitational, and it was a total prize pool of $200,000. So it was pretty awesome to see, top 8 coming away with 5K.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. It is pretty competitive, and we're talking about a global final, so it is pretty hard to get into and break into. But here we go. Here is the tournament brackets and what ended up happening. The main storyline I want to take a look at, the favorites were Echo coming into this, even after their little bit of an upset against Dogs in their group stage. Echo was slated to be pretty popular, pretty dominant, predicted to win as well. They do come out strong in the first 2 matches. Echo over Eclipse 2-0, Echo over Bald Bandits 2-0, knocking both of those teams down into the loser bracket. But in a little bit of a turn of events, Mandatory breaks out the big guns and beats Echo 2-1 in the winners finals, knocking Echo into losers finals. Echo does beat Perplex in another 2-0 fashion and then comes back into the grand finals where we have a banger of a match, 3-2, ultimately going in favor of Mandatory. Just to talk about a little bit of the other teams here, we'd had a lot of 2-0 matches in this, which feels, unscorecard like it was dominant, but it was definitely a lot closer than what it feels. A lot closer percentages, a lot closer boss runs, and a lot closer with some tech with that. I gotta pull something else up real quick. There we go. All right. But more or less,
Echo was the one that we highlighted a couple weeks ago, right? For the strategy with the portals.
that's right.
Right?
Yeah. Echo was the team who had to break out that portal strategy on Galakron's
And then
Rise.
everybody started to use it.
Yes.
And so unfortunately probably should have broken out in the finals.
Well, they needed
is
to.
really what it was.
They needed to break it out then because that's the situation was that Dogs had beat them and they were in the losers bracket, and then they were forced to play, I guess, with the pick bands. They ended up playing that map, and it's lose and you go home at that point. So you can't use a strategy if you're not in the tournament. So it was now or never then. But I have to say, if we're going into like the details about it, not everybody was able to execute it as cleanly, if at all. And that was one of the points I wanted to talk about here. But really, I wanted to highlight another strategy first and foremost, because we had that exciting tech by Echo, who do or died did it 2 weeks ago. And we went over the amazing just cleverness of it and creativeness of it. But there was another very unique tech that happened this week. I want to bring you over into this video posted by Warcraft. But just briefly, I'm going to play it, and then you can see what happens. They're running. They're on a rocket. They're moving super fast. They hop off the edge. They do not go through the portal here. And then they're just flying, floating down, and they perfectly land to where Chromie is for the RP, the role-playing, activate it, and get through this next portal to the final 2 bosses, the final section, the final stage for the last 2 bosses here. It's such a crazy tech, and Nick, I think when you shared this with me, you were like, "What the hell is even happening here?" I know they're going fast and they're flying, but what are they even riding?
I just don't know where the rocket. I don't know where the rockets came from. I was like, I understand like the slow fall and everything like that. Like I was like, oh, I get this part, and I was like, that's awesome. Just like were these like goblin rocket boots, like essentially, like is really what it like felt like. It's just like, but they were rocket cars of some sort, like rocket scooters. So I haven't played WoW in like a year, so I have no idea what this item might be. But you know, this is the stuff people watch this for. They don't watch it for tank and spanks, just like in general. Just if anybody from not Last Hope, but anybody from any other game, not Echo, not Last Hope. You guys gave us something to really blow up about. But like everybody else, like come with some grenades or something.
Well, I would just jump in and kind of say that I do sometimes. There's certain points where it's cool to see like a tech where how they use cooldowns to like beat a boss within a certain phase where like 99% of players won't be able to like burn a boss in that phase. So like I feel like DPS races in that way are really nice and cool to see. But otherwise, yeah, like just kind of seeing, okay, here's 500 mobs for 100% of your mob percentage right now. Okay, cool. You don't really get the feel of the technicality of that as much as you do where it's like characters go fast, characters go fly, characters skip 20 seconds, 30 seconds of race time, basically. Could you imagine this happening in like a Olympic 300 meter dash or something, where it's like somebody just pops on a rocket and just like cuts a corner, and then it's like, yeah, okay, we're good. This is
I mean, similarly, something like this did just happen in like in an actual sports race, right? Where the was it the Chinese team?
Yeah.
Like, you know, was it speed skating or bike?
It was speed skating. Yeah.
And like they just manipulated the way everybody thought about everything because of the way they did stuff,
right?
And they ran, and then basically people thought the whole race ended by the time one person like crossed. And the first and second place ended up being the Chinese contestants because everybody gave up when the one person crossed after they realized that, like, oh my God, she's about to just win the whatever.
Right,
and then they lost second place.
Yeah, let me pull that video up really quick because it's super fascinating because there's a general meta where the skaters start slow and off the line.
And she was just booking it right out the gate.
One of the Chinese teammates booked it and was basically lapped them. And then the second one bumped to the front and stayed there.
Dude, it felt like somebody was playing Mario Kart. Like it literally felt like somebody was playing Mario Kart where like everybody didn't know the map. And like this one person was like, I got it. And just
right. Here's the video real quick. Coming off the line. everyone's kind of going slow. Nothing's matter. Like, and then the Chinese skater comes in just all around and like just books it, whereas everyone else is going slow.
Just gas.
Eventually they get to the last lap and like everyone stops thinking, oh, it's over already, because mentally everyone's together. The one skater lapped them, stays there. But the other Chinese skater keeps going, beats out the other skaters, and ends up coming in second. So they see the flag, they wait, like it's just such a mind trip. If I can say mind fuck, it's definitely that. And it was such a clever, sneaky thing.
Strats. Pure strats, bro. Pure strats. Was in the Olympics like 4 years ago or something? They took a loss just so they could get a better pairing in volleyball. Like Chinese team again. Dude, they got the best strats. like what are we doing here? They got IRL best strats. Like, what's going on?
But they're not playing with honor, right? I know.
Change the rules.
You're right. You're here to win. You're not here to make friends. But yeah, back to WoW on this, especially this, it's very equivalent to being a race. So it's really cool to see them break out tech. Let's watch it one more time once it loops around. Because like realistically, what you're seeing is all 5 characters, they hop on a rocket. So their speed is really fast. As soon as they jump off the edge, they hit a spell or cast levitate or slow fall on each other and basically just coast the distance all the way through this. Normally you'd go through those gates and they'd be a lot slower. You'd fly on a magical dragon and it have a consistent speed. So like they have to, congrats to them. They cut off like easily a good 10, 20 seconds on that, doing that. And it's such a cool thing to see in this tournament, though it didn't really make a difference at the final standings here. Last hope.
No, it pushed them into not getting to getting more money. Essentially, like they were able to make 4th, right?
Fair enough. Yeah, perplexed in 3rd, Lost Hope in 4th. Yeah. Was it Lost Hope that did that? I know it was the name at the top, but I'm not sure if that was the team. I think it must have been.
Yeah, it was Lost Hope. Yes, yeah, they lost Perplex, right there.
Right. So in that way, it did give them a little bit more hope as their last hope, getting them through Legendary and Bald Bandits in the loser bracket, but not quite edging it out to Perplexed there. The MDI as a whole was super exciting. It was all plus 24s and 25s with pretty difficult affixes. Fortify, Tyrannical were pretty much the hardest ones that nobody was looking forward to. I think a lot of people banned it. But the surprising thing with that was that we saw a lot of 4 DPS comps, 1 tank, 4 DPS, no healers. So we saw a lot of that risk reward play in that strategy there, but also in that composition. Then also people were mimicking the Echo Rift Mage snapping strategy. So I wonder if Lost Hope was able to fully get it, because that was a struggle that some teams had where they weren't able to pull off the mage portal hop and the snapping.
And they just found a workaround.
And then this was
just like, forget it. We're gonna.
I don't know if this was a workaround or not, but like this could have been something to add to it. Like if Echo did this plus their strat, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
They just added it into the strats, right? Like it never goes away after this. If you can gain 20 seconds against your opponent from just like dodging those travels, then by all means, like everybody should be doing it, because it's very simple compared to the portal strategy, right? Go real fast, jump, hit a button, so.
It is something that requires a specific class or specific items, which they can change, I believe, in between rounds. Like the Echo strat required everybody to go Night Elf, but in that way, they'd be running a Night Elf Priest, Night Elf Mage. Mage would have to put Slow Fall on everybody, and then so not necessarily difficult, but definitely impacts some of the other decisions with that. Overall, really cool to see. Nick, if you had any takeaways, any initial, like I guess not last minute thoughts, but like retrospectively, any thoughts for the MDI and how it was this season this year?
Now, so when cool stuff like this happens in a tournament, the only words that I have are for the developers. Don't try to increase this. Let the players discover this stuff on their own. Don't try to implement like, oh, we're going to put this skip in if you have rocket boots and stuff like that. Like, just make your game and let the players come up with the cool strats, because that way it looks like awesome and it doesn't end up being like a cookie cutter thing that, Blizzard, another cookie cutter thing that Blizzard hands to players. So.
Well, in that way too, I wonder. You say that, it reminds me of Mario Kart. Like there's certain secret like little passages that are built in, and everyone gets to know at a certain competition level. But of course, Mario Kart is Mario Kart, and you're gonna get blue shelled or not. I wonder though if that's like more of a question of bad game development. If you want to leave more bugs and corner cutting in there like that so that players can exploit it. And I know that's what you usually see with speedrunning, players exploiting code and situations and out of bounds stuff. So I wonder, what's the extent, and that could be a whole big conversation.
Yeah, just, keep it light and let the players come up with this stuff. And for the players, I would say like, bring more to the table. Try to come up with some really fun stuff for this, because really, like, the first place winner, like each person walked away with 16,000 if it's just going to the players, right? Out of the $80,000, that doesn't include coaches or anything like that. You will never, like, if you don't get eyeballs on your thing from cool stuff like this is awesome. Anybody who plays WoW is like, oh man, this is pretty cool, because we all do skips in normal dungeons anyway, right? And sometimes we get to do cool skips once we learn about them from somebody else doing them or someone showing us, right? Yeah. So, this will get out to the players eventually, whether or not they'll be using it. But like I'm sure that like someone might, because it does save 20 seconds. You are timed to get your items anyway. So 20 seconds is 20 seconds. Sometimes that's a death, right? So just come out with some cool stuff. Like I really enjoyed that. And I really enjoyed the Echo strat. But that was like, those are like the real highlights from the tournament, where I think we should probably have a little bit more. Maybe I'm not saying try harder, but like be more creative with it, right? Because there's got to be multiple ways to solve the problem, especially in these like RPGs.
Right. We were just talking about that with like other games, but that's a big topic, and probably another topic we can kind of go into later. Where's the line? Where's the balance between leaving that room open, and then where's the learning curve for audiences? I know like just in time walking and WoW, like there's skips I used to do 10 years ago that people don't even know about or don't even remember, because it's different people or they're just old and have bad memories now. But anyway, let's move on. Let's hit up our next topic. Nick, you're our Magic the Gathering guy. We have a new sort of announcement or story, basically, that there was a ban restriction update as of yesterday. Here we are.
Yeah.
So here's the new announcements for the ban and restriction for the different stuff. If Nick, you want to run us through this?
Yeah. So I mean, like usually there's not a lot of bannings when it comes to like standard. Unless there's any glaring issues, they never really get any bans. Same thing with like Ponder, and same thing with Modern, but they all get touched a lot more than the older formats. And so on this one, the only person that got really hit were the top two decks in Modern. Both play Violent Outburst, and the only way to really deal with combos or cards of these natures, and just a quick rundown, Violent Outburst allows you to basically cascade into another spell in your deck, and cascade is, when you play this card, remove the top card to your library from the game until you reveal a non-land card that costs less, and then cast it. You get to cast it for free. In Magic the Gathering and in any game, if something costs resources and you don't have to use resources to cast something or do something, it's always plus and it's always broken. This specific instance, it's an instant, and because it's an instant, you're allowed to do it on your opponent's turn. And because you can do it on your opponent's turn, the only defensive spells that Modern has is Force of Negation. I always get the name messed up, but I'm pretty sure it's Force of Negation. And basically, you can play it for free if it's your opponent's turn. And because this is an instant, they can do it on your turn, and you can't do anything about it for the most part. So it lacks a lot of counterplay, and so they're banning it. It doesn't stop these decks, but because there's 3 mana cards that do the exact same thing as far as cascading, except their sorceries. So you have to do it on your turn. So it's just slowing you down a little bit to give someone some sort of counterplay.
Well, yeah, it seems like it's making it. It seems like it's making it more defensive rather than aggressive, like you said, adding counterplay back into it.
Like it'll still be like aggressive for the most part, because like the spell that they go into is just rhinos. You put out 4/4 rhino tokens for free.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha. Yeah, like there's a couple other like things that you can do with the deck. Yeah, it's just your opponent's ability to actually interact with the spell at the time in which they cast it. And so that's the reason why this is getting hit, because there's other options for them. So it shouldn't take them out of the top 5 decks. But again, 2 of the top decks, the number 1 and number 2 spot, were decks that ran Violent Outburst. And, so they're banned. So they'll have to change a little bit, but they should be in the top contenders. And then nothing got hit in Legacy, even though Grief should be. But, don't let anybody know that I said that, because I'll just get screamed at. But anyway, then Ponder got unrestricted. And like unrestrictions are cool, but they usually don't mean too much, especially in Vintage. And this is just it's a card advantage card. It just lets you to see 4 cards at most. Usually it's like 3 cards. You get the shuffle and you draw a card. That's it. Gotcha. So they're just bringing fair blue back. They're trying to bring fair blue.
They're trying to make a blue deck more viable.
Yeah, I mean, there's some other like we can argue if another deck is like fair blue or not, but like that's not the fact that we'd have to argue it is evidence of itself. that it's probably not a fair blue deck, but but anyway, so that's really like.
Yeah, so like generally speaking, when I see like patch notes or bans, unbans kind of lists, I'm very surprised to see that this is like there's only 2 happening here. And that's, I guess that's like, a philosophy of small changes, especially on printed materials and situations. But then like,
if you look down,
I'm sorry.
If you look down at the bottom of the page, they usually have like, and like I read some of the stuff that they talk about. Can you go lower? Yeah. And so like right here, this is what they're talking about it.
They'll
talk about like their reasons, and everything like that. And then you can get to my format, which is Legacy, and like I would have choice words for the people who wrote this. Like, you're a bunch of Death and Taxes players. That's all I got to say. You're afraid of Orcish Bowmaster. That's end of story.
I don't even want to. For the last week, you've been really like just going on about this Grief card and that it needs to be banned. And then you were so livid to see that it wasn't banned yesterday, that nobody seems to think that this card's a problem.
There's people who think it's a problem, but they're using Grief. And they're also winning tournaments. So like I used Grief for a very long time. Like I was playing Reanimator. It's just an extremely strong card. It's like we don't even have to go into it. It just removes the amount of cards that are in your opponent's hand, and spells can be countered in Magic the Gathering. This is one of the most counterable spells in the game. So it can be countered, but the odds of you actually saying, I'm going to counter that, are probably 2 out of 10. Just in general.
In fairness, that doesn't make it uncounterable. It's just players are choosing not to counter it, not realizing this is the threat or this is a threat.
The only way to counter it in most cases is to remove 2 cards from your hand to counter it. The counter spell and the thing that allows you to cast the counter spell. And if they're already going to take 1, why are you going to give them 2? That's the reason why it's uncounterable. So like if you you're going to try to stop, like you need to have 3 to 4 cards to stop it.
Gotcha.
It doesn't math. So, and if you take a mulligan and you're less on cards, like we can go into the whole
it's more of a disadvantage. But gotcha. Yeah. It's like starting blackjack with only 1 card rather than 2.
Yep. It just makes poor play patterns. It doesn't ever feel good. And it doesn't make you feel good to really grief and re-grief somebody is the reason why I say it. But as you can look back on that page, Wizards of the Coast doesn't even talk about grief. They talk about Orcish Bowmaster because the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And Orcish Bowmaster is a huge complaint card because it took out like a deck called Death and Taxes. And it's a very good entry-level deck that's cheap that got hit by Orcish Bowmaster.
So in that way, In that way, it seems like they kind of balance on the philosophy of player sentiment more so, or what would you think?
Like probably in some cases, yeah. Like there's a card called Ragavan that's a 2/1 monkey that like it's a problem, but I don't think it's as much of a problem as people made it out to be. But that one got banned. He's a 2/1 monkey that takes cards off the top of your deck. You get treasure tokens. He's a good advantage card. It's a very good card just in general.
Yeah.
But it's not busted. It's just really hard to deal with and does make pretty bad play patterns. Like anytime a card makes bad play patterns, you just need to get rid of it in the format because people end up doing stupid stuff to counter it in their deck. Excuse me. Making the meta just not great.
Right. Rather than going 1 for 1, you're going 5 for 1 kind of thing.
Yeah. So
gotcha.
It's just not great. Yeah.
Yeah. The math ain't mathin'. And that's a lot of what Magic is, math.
Yep. And the other card that they talk about is Broadside Bombardiers. Like both of these cards, like Orcish Bowmasters was made like 10 months ago. Broadside Bombardiers was made very recently. I can't even remember, like a couple months.
But that's kind of interesting too, because these two decks were some of the top 8 in the last 2 major tournaments we talked about, the Chicago tournament and then this one in Philly.
Yeah, I mean, like, so Orcish Bowmaster is in a lot of decks that run black. It's a fine card. It like there's ways to deal with it. You can counter it if you want, but like like one of the pros convinced me. Like I had a little bit more of an issue with Orcish Bowmaster, but basically his word was like you can deal with Orcish Bowmaster, but you're going to counter Narset. And basically Orcish Bowmaster is anytime your opponent draws an additional card, you get to deal 1 damage and you get to amass 1. So it's make a 1/1 token or make that 1/1 token a 2/2, 3/3, 4/4, 5/5. Right?
Gotcha. Yeah.
So it just grows. Okay. And that's why it's seeing a lot of play is because Brainstorm and Ponder and Force of Will have been legacy staples since Legacied. Like that's just it. Like
yeah, that's something that they're talking about here. Yeah.
Yeah. They're just they've been there forever. Brainstorm is I won't even say my opinions on Brainstorm. Okay.
All right.
Like,
we'll save it for another day.
Like me and a bunch of people will start fighting. The card is broken and that's it. And then there's Ponder. Ponder just got unrestricted. Yeah. It's a good card. It's a very good card. And then Force of Will is a bad card. That's good in situations, but another situation where people might argue with me that it's a good card. It's a bad card. You lose a card from your hand and you lose 1 life to stop something from happening right now. And that's it. So you go from 7 to 5 and you just stop something from happening. Like
it's a 2 for 1, but yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. That's the only way to get rid of grief. Just to let you know, it's that Force of Will. So that's what I was saying before.
Right.
The only thing. So you're either losing 2 cards to stop 1, and then they're going to do it again to you, and they're going to take 3 cards. So would you rather have them take 2 cards or 3 cards? And again, the math ain't mathin', right? Like you're going to let them take the 2 cards.
Well, Nick, you seem to be selling yourself short, like as far as people agreeing with you, but like it does seem that one of the pro players does agree in some degree, agrees with you. Just talking about recap of the weekend, but then talking about, grief being a bit of a problem in general.
Yeah, I mean, he goes into it multiple different times. He won't. He's very like I joke and I say he's like extreme. He has an extreme media trained vernacular. He's very good at not like completely taking a stance on like this card needs to be banned. But even in this video, he talks about how like the overall impact. In the beginning of the video, when he goes over his deck tech, he literally says like, "But grief is extremely like I didn't realize how powerful grief was," and it's a little bit farther down because he did modern too.
Okay, legacy.
Yeah, basically like right around there. And so like he literally starts to talk. He talks about it. Like you don't until you start playing like this specific version or a version that's similar to it. You don't know how powerful grief is. And it's too powerful, like
Gotcha.
in my opinion. And then, like, and he's not going to come out right and say that because this deck's only been around for like 2 weeks. So
Right. You can't go sensational, and we'll see how the curve kind of goes with this. If sentiment actually changes with the player base, but definitely interesting to see.
the player base is a bunch of blue haters. Like everybody hates blue. Like so they're I call them grief apologists.
Well, blue is the type. The blue is the type to say no, you can't do this. We're the fun police.
Yeah, exactly. Like, because it stopped you from doing fun things once, you hate it for the rest of your life. Like, that cool thing that I spent my whole deck to try to do, and they stopped it one time.
Right.
But anyway.
Yeah. It's cool to see these Magic tournaments and the meta defining and how players are reacting with it. It'll be interesting to see what happens next with more tournaments that are coming up. The next ban list that's going to come out is about 6 months, I believe. I read that correctly, Nick. Yeah.
It's going to be a while. Like, unless like we have sets that come out all the time, and unless like a card comes out that breaks one of these decks that they've already seen, then we won't be seeing a ban for a while.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
All right. Well, hopefully you can see some meta shifting, some player power come through, and some honesty with themselves about what's really bothering them. But let's move on.
We're all going to play cheese. It's fine.
Hey, you got to math that math. All right. But let's move on. Let's move on to our next quick topic headline. Just very briefly, figuring it's important, and it's going to probably make a big dent in the esports world. I don't know how legitimately, but Warzone is going to mobile. It's releasing this coming week, I believe on the 21st of March. Overall, Warzone's already it's the Call of Duty game right now. Call of Duty League is playing on it. It'll be cool to see how this impacts an esport or promotional events around it. But I don't think serious players really play on mobile because Call of Duty servers are already kind of sketchy, and then mobile is then secondary, also sketchy. Nick, do you have any sort of thoughts about mobile games in the competitive scene? Are they faux pas or are they legit?
Not like Pokemon could be a mobile game, right? Like Pokemon is the type of game that could be like a mobile game and succeed in a competitive aspect, and it would probably do a lot better. Like Hearthstone tried to do this, where it was like the fireside gatherings where you would bring like your tablet somewhere and you go do something. I think Pokemon could succeed. Shooters have no place on mobile. They just don't. You don't like. They don't. Like there's multiple reasons why they should be on consoles, why they should be on PC, and I don't even want to go into the negatives because I think like pointing out the negatives is really silly. But as far as like a competitive aspect, as soon as you go into mobile, you start treading waters on being like kind of like a gacha game where you're trying to like milk the most amount of money out of your game. And that almost eliminates a whole player base from it, right? Like China. Like as soon as you try to grab too much money from kids, you're automatic. Like the Chinese Gaming Commission will shut you down. It's the reason why Fortnite doesn't exist.
Yeah, even if you try to take too much time from kids playing, if you want the daily active users to have more than 2 hours, they just cut.
Yeah, they don't like it, which is good. Like I really do appreciate that. That's China's the reason why we know the rates on Overwatch skins that have that with loot boxes.
Well, on anything that has to be developed and sold in China, they have to release the percentages. Honestly, coming from somebody who worked in sports betting and casino, that's a very big regulation to see the RTP, return to player, just to know that blackjack might return 60-something% on average, and that's an average over like tens of thousands of players. But it's very important to see what kind of hit back you're basically going to get.
Exactly. So I don't really know what they're going to do with this. And if it's going to have any any story mode features, right? But it says like cross progression features and stuff like that. So it's obviously, and this will be my opinion, obvious to me that this is just going to be trying to keep you off of other games. This is specifically designed to get you to play their mobile game so that you can get a skin for your console game or what have you, so you can earn something for the game that you do play. So to me, is kind of garbage. Like, just let me play other games and let me come back to your good game. It's a better way of doing it.
It does feel like a place where they're going to try to just get you to play the game more and then get you to buy more. And hardware wise, I think phones are getting fast enough, strong enough. Internet's still going to be kind of sketchy, and this net code that some games really work on, it's kind of garbage, and that makes a big difference for competitive or ranked kind of situations. But
what's the biggest downfall for mobile gaming? It's the cooling. Like, they're powerful computers just in general, but they're little batteries. I mean, like, even if we take controls out of it, like, how long can that little battery? Because, like, the whole thing is essentially like a battery with a motherboard, right? Like, how can it keep itself cool, right? Like, it doesn't have a real good cooling system. Even the new iPhone overheats when I have it in the car. Like, so playing like music if the sun's on it for too long. So,
well, that's a different. That's also you're adding the sun with that. But either way, like, I think this is a strategy to just get people to play more, increase their daily active users where they could just pick it up rather than having to sit down. They're attacking the dad gamer, I think, on this one. People who are interested but can't really dedicate some more time to it, a certain amount of time to it. And it's maybe it's also getting a whole new audience into it, right? Like, that could be a thing, and that could be a pipeline to competitive. As a whole, it's always good to see more audience, but like, as a specific, hey, it's coming out. If you're interested, it's another way for you to play. Don't expect to play competitive and like seriously, because there's going to be certain limitations, like we said, talking about aiming, controls, and then heating of the hardware. Otherwise, processor, what I know, in screen wise, graphic wise, it'll get the job done, even though it's still kind of like on the relative small side. But that seems to be more or less what we can talk about and go over, but we do have more pressing topics and stories to get into. That one was just the announcement. This is coming out on March 21st. Nick, you wanted to talk about the upcoming League Championship Series, so let me bring that information up real quick, and if you can run me through it real hastily.
Real hastily. So starting on the 14th, we have the LCS playoffs, right? This is going to include, you can scroll down right there. Boom. So it's going to include Fly, TL Honda. I like to call it because it's Team Liquid Honda, and it's great. I love saying it because it reminds me of Street Fighter. But anyway, even though it's just a car. And then we have 100 Thieves, Cloud9, NRG, and then Dignitas, right? All Dignitas and NRG are basically in the losers brackets because they didn't make the cut. These are the top 4 teams otherwise.
Top 4 placed, and then the last 5 and 6 got into losers.
Yeah, pretty much. And so, like, Team Liquid ended up even. They were 7 and 7, 8 and 6 for Cloud9, and then both 1 and 2 spots, which is 100 Thieves and FlyQuest, were both 10 and 4. So they were doing pretty well over the huge gap. So, and I do not say this as like as a guarantee, but usually in these playoff situations, the small fries, the smaller guys who have not been doing too well over the season, end up pulling out some weird stuff, and some of the top teams end up losing. So they usually these are usually pretty good matches to watch overall.
All right, yeah, and that's happening when you said?
Starts on the 14th, so in 2 days from now. So it's going to start on Thursday.
On Thursday, okay. So just quickly though, what's your predictions? Who do you see coming out number 1, and who's your dark horse to look out for? I know you said that there's a big gap between the top 2 teams. Not a big gap. The top 2 teams are 10 and 4, and the other teams are like 8 and 8, 7 and 8 situations. Do you see that still happening, the domination? But or do you see that dark horse coming through?
It's still probable that's going to happen with the way a lot of these players are actually performing. But Cloud9 does have the ability to just turn into a dark horse. They have some really solid players. And then same thing with Team Liquid. Like, Team Liquid has 2 previous world champions on it, just in general, in Impact and Core JJ, the top laner and the support. And Core JJ is an inspiration. Both of them are phenomenal players, like just phenomenal players overall. But these are a lot of phenomenal players. There's only 50 players in these leagues that are all pro. They're all really high skill players. So usually when it comes down to this, it's really just the team, how well the team meshes will determine your record.
Right. And who can rise to the occasion, because it's playoffs, right? Here we go. So that's coming up. And the finals, do we know when the finals are going to be, or is it just for regular season?
Should be the tournament. So this is just for the spring split, and then there's still another split to come out.
Okay.
So we have 2 splits per year
this season, and then the finals are on March 31st. It'll be fun to watch from now till then, see who comes through, what kind of excitement happens, if those top 2 teams can keep on top, stay on top, and exert their dominance. But speaking of exerting dominance, we're going to move into the Overwatch League, the North America Championship Series just Swiss stages started this past weekend, and there was some domination for sure. Let me open that up and run us through. All right, here we are. So it happened this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The main teams, Toronto Defiant, LFO, Timeless. We've had some name changes. We have some roster apocalypse happening. That was last week. But here we go. We had some associations and organizations grouping up. But nuts and bolts, what we get down to, looking at who won. Toronto Defiant, which was an expected favorite, came out strong in the 2-0 in their group. And Final Gambit getting bumped out. Luminosity Gaming, also a strong strong team in their group with the 2-0. Really pretty straightforward, pretty easy for those teams. It seemed like they went 6-0 in maps, so they didn't even drop a single round, let alone the entire game. Other teams to notice, Timeless was one that people weren't entirely sure about, but have a really great DPS duo that are finally getting their name recognized. They're finally getting attention. They did go 6-2 in maps, so they are +4, but that doesn't matter because they've got the 2-0. M80 was a team that saw a lot of roster apocalypse happen to them, but managed to come together with a whole new roster 40 minutes before the deadline. They had no time to come together. And so it's anything they do here has been miraculous. And so far, so good. 1-1. They'll be playing more this coming weekend. Students of the Game are a team. What team is that again? No current page. They're another team that not totally sure, but did end up with their 2-0, leading their bracket. This doesn't really seem like a group that's too strong in general. So it'll be exciting to watch, but nobody's really expecting much out of this. But that's also where all these dark horses can ultimately come from. A bunch of 3-0 matches. It was really cool. Good Overwatch. Cool to see players' perspectives and see Overwatch come back into a full hype moment in this new way. It's the first taste back into North America Overwatch esports. Nick, did you get a chance to watch any of this, or as a not really a deviant Overwatch player like some of us are?
I'm not a degenerate, no, when it comes to Overwatch, but I can tell you right now, I know Tracer's a problem. Like from watching games and playing for like the last week just to like try to get a feel for it again. Tracer is an issue. And I did my placements. I'm gold 2. I'm so good at this game. I'm painfully average. But I haven't played in 2 years. And I went straight into comp as a healer, went straight into comp, and I came out gold 2. Tracer is an issue.
In this patch too? I'm sorry, dude. That's masochistic or sadist, whatever one. Sounds like you hate yourself.
Yeah, a little bit, It's okay. But it was fun. But Tracer, it did seem like Tracer had a little bit too much of the share. Yeah.
Tracer definitely got a lot more juice from the squeeze on this one. We're actually going to kind of go into that a little bit. The comps that we mostly saw in this past weekend were Sigma Doom comps. Sometimes we saw some Junker Queen. Sometimes we saw some Diva. Those were more situation map dependent, but it was more so Ram Sigma that came out on top, mostly probably because of that Tracer dive being really strong. They can hunker down, protect themselves while the rest of the team can deal with that Tracer, focus on that Tracer. Just a real quick graphic. This was ultimately the brackets, what we just saw, but a little prettier. For this past weekend, we'll have the next group of games happening this coming weekend. Same situation, Friday, Saturday, Sunday will be EMEA and North America. And we'll get to see the rest of the teams fight for the last spots. Only the top 4 will move into the tournament and then fight for a chance to get to DreamHack to represent North America and play against Europe and Korea and the rest of the Eurasia regions. But it's nice to see this happening. It's nice to see player perspectives. It's nice to see the emotion and drive coming to the game. So of course we have teams like Toronto who are going to dominate, and like you kind of expect them to. But like it's nice to see the dom teams, the submissive teams, come back and have a chance in Dark Horse and like really go in, because like you're saying with the LCS playoffs, once you get a shot in, that's all you need. But then you got to show up. You got to show up and you got to play.
We'll see how many of these players end up carrying their teams. Like some of the like that's the cool thing too about these tournaments, when you have like no name for yourself and you're able to play against like all of these really good players. You could literally have some random person who's just the most top-notch Genji there is come out and just get picked up from another team, right? Just absolutely get scouted and ripped off of his team.
Right. Especially when you have a specialist that plays into the meta right now. And like you said, the meta is very Tracer heavy. We have the main story talking about the meta over in Japan. We'll go into in just a second. But like most teams everywhere are playing like a divey Tracer Echo sort of comp. Echo is just air Tracer anyway. So to see like a specialist or a player who can come in and make a name for themselves is huge, especially after this round of games. Next month, when there's another round of games, another group stage, these points are player based. So it'll be kind of cool to see if one of the losing teams drops their players and they get sold off to another team and their points go with them. Those 6 points from the first round.
Do they?
They do. And that
wait, hold on, dude. Did you just tell me that after 3 weeks, some team can just start buying points by buying players on other teams, like just disbanding teams and picking up? You're out of your mind. They let consolidation happen, and I could just do math in order to win this. Get the most
perfect system. It's not a perfect system, but it's one to keep teams from just owning the points and then dropping the players. Like, so, okay, let's say towards the end, you get a super team. You get a super team by winning. You top 4 make it, or let's say the top 2 make it. 3 and 4 teams, they're going to disband or they're going to try again the next round. They could sell their players to other teams and just make a super team that way with those points. So like, and it'll be the centerpiece is with the teams. And like, that's a way to screw over the players. At least with this way, the players have more agency, more power in the system. And so it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, but
interesting. There's going to be 5 people, man, that go in here just to play in tournaments, just to sell their slots and make a living off of it. Like, this sounds like boosting to me.
There might even
this
be
sounds like boosting, bro.
There might be organizations that do that, man. They like, and like, it'll be interesting to see in this first iteration of this. And then what I want to see, I expect to see, what I'm looking forward to, but I don't think it's going to be great, is that there's going to be certain players, certain coaches that are going to try to math so that they can like have this conjecture. In a little asterisk here, though, I got to say the second round, the next round to go to DreamHack, the group stages, they're going to be worth more points. And like, that's something that traditionally happened in Overwatch League, where the later rounds were worth more points, like as you got closer to grand finals and like season playoffs. But that seems to be the case here as well. Like next group stages, people who qualify, who get in, they're going to be getting more points than these. So it's still pretty not, I don't say dire, but still, you got to fight. You got to have a dog in this race. You got to put it out. But like, yeah, there could be some shenanigans for sure.
Yeah, wait until playoffs start to hit, and like one team is, X amount of points, but has a nice big wallet. Like they're X amount of points away from like being in the playoffs versus not being in the playoffs, and then they open up that purse, spare some change, and just end up getting into the playoffs. Like,
but that's where the conflict might come. Sorry to cut you off, but that's where the conflict might come, because just because they have the purse doesn't mean it's feasible to compete. Like they'll compete, but they might be competing at a loss. And if it's something like the Saudi Esport League where they're just throwing money because they want the competition, they don't care about the prizes really, or the prizes aren't living up to what player salaries need to be. Players are living on couches at this point. And it's a real knockback to reality after Overwatch League, but it's kind of a new one because Overwatch league was a bit of overinflated. So yes, you can have somebody come in with a big purse and just buy a team, but then what's their return on investment? What are they seeing? And what's great for the long-term investment of that? And then we could see, because those teams come in and buy out and they just win, that there needs to be more prize pool support, basically. And that kind of goes hand in hand. There's a lot of different ways it could go, and it's a big conversation, especially with this current meta, how you're saying like a specialist could come in. So that's where I want to switch this topic into meta a little bit, into the Japanese meta. Let me bring this up. We're seeing a specific comp by the Namakuje brothers, where it's literally being dubbed the Namakuje comp, where they're taking low-tier low-tier heroes, and they're playing them in top-level Overwatch. Excuse me.
So we got what? Low win rate heroes, basically?
It's low win rate heroes, but it's low tier, and what a lot of ranked players and professional players would consider low tier in this patch note meta. Now, granted, this is an asterisk. Today is Tuesday. The mid-season patch has come out in Overwatch, and apparently there's some pretty dramatic changes. So this might all change this coming weekend, which makes it more exciting to watch how this tournament continues to roll. But for the last 2-3 weeks, this has been the name of the game, and we're going to talk about it in that manner. So first and foremost, Namakuje brothers are running Roadhog as a tank. They generally will have an Echo or a Tracer, and then they'll run a Hanzo, sometimes a Sombra, and then they're running Lifeweaver Zen. This is a graphic from the broadcast showing the players like spotlight heroes, the ones they're known for, and it's predominantly Nozzle here. The tank player is known for his Roadhog. He's a Roadhog god. He's here for the honorable, dishonorable Roadhog matchups, and that's what we get brought to. Let's go bring it in. So you can already see here on Midtown, it's second point. The top right, Namakuje brothers are in their flavor. They're running Roadhog, Echo, Hanzo, Zen, Kiriko, likely for the cleanse, likely to teleport. And because this comp isn't a grouped up comp, it's a poke comp, it's an autonomous comp. Hanzo can just fire arrows from afar. He's not going to get the headshots that he used to be able to get, but he's a threat. So he's like a juicy dive target that can bait people in. Echo is a blow 'em up tank buster and is able to dash away and get out of trouble if needed. Also can aggressively go in, dive some players when they see that they're low. And that's where the Hanzo synergy comes in, because Hanzo can headshot, take them down to half, take them down to 75, like 25% health. And then the Echo could be diving on them. Zen is your Discord orb and your just menace. He plays far back like the Hanzo. He plays separate, and he's just looking to orb some people. He's going to throw his balls at you, and he's going to hit you in the face, and you're not going to know what hit you. Plus, that Discord Orb is super strong against tanks. So it gives more value to the Roadhog, who's a DPS tank, a tank buster himself. But his strength weakness is his health pool and his healing. He's autonomous in bursts of like 10 seconds, and then he's got to hide again. And then Kiriko just to teleport to whoever needs her help and tries to get people out of trouble. Lifeweaver is probably the better play here, and we see that come through and happen because Lifeweaver can just pull, get you out of, oh, Hanzo, you're in trouble, yoink. Roadhog, you're in trouble, yoink. So we're going to play through here and just kind of talk about what's happening. There's a lot of poke. This is a longer map where you see a lot of people get stuck here in the car wash underneath. Dragon goes underneath. Major pushing, major dominance just for that. The dragon, the hog hook, can't really deal with it. It's super duper interesting and very cool to see something off meta come into this meta that's tracer heavy, this Sigma Ram meta heavy. So Nick, any initial sort of thoughts with this or feelings?
So like both of them got the echo, right? I'm surprised that Pandia doesn't have tracer, like just to do that, because I think the tracer probably be pretty nice.
No, that's a good point. I think on a lot of other maps or points in this map they do, and it's great targets to go after that. The Zen and the Kiriko is slippery, but the Zen and the Hanzo are great dive targets for a tracer with that DPS passive, that 20% mortal strike. That like
and if they're playing by themselves.
Yeah.
Right. Like if they're trying to be autonomous, like Tracer really punishes people by themselves. Right. Like anytime that you're any healer that's just, a little too far back just gets tracered. Right. And then like they really have no counterplay in the back to her and to Tracer anyway. Right. Like besides like
I do want to say the Hanzo is a bit of a threat because she still can get one shot by this. I want to just spotlight real quick here. This is the reason you would use an echo. So Namekuji is going to push in. They're going to push in on this echo, but they don't seem to be making any space, any room here. They get three in this situation, the Kiriko, Echo, and the Hanzo. So Namekuji backs off. They just poke, waiting for it. In this next push, they're going to be pushing in through the small door on the left here to Pandia. Pandia is going to respond by using their Echo copy ultimate. And they're going to use it in an aggressive way, but it's also a survival way. They copy the Hog, so they have Hog Sigma push here. There's the Hog. Immediately gets hooked, immediately gets knocked out. So like there's a ton of bait there. There's a ton of aggression and defensiveness happening there. And I think Bob got used and just kind of knocked into a bad spot. So like that's why I wanted to kind of spotlight it, is that Echo is like an interesting pick for these comps and for this game. Because it does provide that like extra hog situation. Let me bring this over to the next round real quick. We don't really have much time here. At this point, we're seeing a Moira Kiri comp from Namekuji rather than the Zen Lifeweaver. But you're seeing Pandia run the Namekuji comp with the Zen Lifeweaver.
They did not like playing against it, right? Like that's what it looks like. We don't like playing against this. Just play it. I don't know what to do, but we'll play it.
They did pull out the wins, and they are 2-0 currently at this point with on the third map here. They pull it out either for the honorable fight, the mirror match, but
or the disrespect.
Yeah, right. Or the disrespect, or they just, like you said, didn't like what they were playing against here. It's a lot to happen, and like we got to wrap up here. There's so much more I want to talk about, but just briefly, I wanted to show how Roadhog was considered second to worst tank. Let me zoom in here a little bit more. Roadhog, second to worst tank. Lifeweaver, worst healing in this meta. Zen is top support, but mostly because of the Discord Orb and the amount of damage you can put out. Like you said, Tracer number 1 up here, but Hanzo is middle of the pack at best, and they're considering Echo kind of worse at that. But it's super interesting to see how they're able to pull this low tier comp out and make waves with it forcing other teams to play it, and we'll see if it kind of comes through, because the new patch notes for today are wild, and we're gonna have to just talk about it next week. But any final thoughts before we wrap up, Nick?
I got nothing.
And we got to jump into streaming because we just need more time. That's really it. But if you're interested in seeing us stream, head up our Twitch, like, follow, do all the internet things. We're on YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok. We're you know, wherever your social media platform of choice is, we're there. This has been the Esports Meta. Thank you for joining us. Check us out again live next Tuesday for our next episode. My name has been Billy. If you don't like what we're doing here, it's Nick. Don't bother me. Just go bother Nick.
Yeah, right. Like, and my name is Taliesin.
Yeah, right. And if you have any comments, questions, let us know. We'll be glad to talk with you and anywhere you want to be talking. But thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.